The hidden drive behind attraction, Nietzsche's revolutionary understanding of human desire. In 1886, Friedrich Nietzsche penned words that would challenge everything society believed about human relationships and attraction. "What does not destroy me makes me stronger." But behind this famous quote lay a deeper philosophical insight that would explain one of the most confusing aspects of human attraction: why people are consistently drawn to individuals who embody what Nietzsche called will to power. This concept wasn't about domination or control over others, but about something far more profound and psychologically compelling: the drive towards self-mastery, creative expression, and authentic personal growth that signals to others an individual's capacity for genuine strength and life-affirming energy. The philosophical journey that led to this understanding began with Nietzsche's observation that traditional moral systems had created what he called slave morality, a psychological framework that celebrated weakness, resentment, and conformity, while discouraging individual excellence, creative risk-taking, and authentic self-expression. He noticed that people who had internalized this slave morality became psychologically unattractive, not because they were kind or compassionate, but because they had lost connection to their own vital energy and creative potential. Nietzsche's concept of will to power represented the opposite of this psychological diminishment. It described the fundamental life force that drives individuals toward growth, mastery, and creative self-expression. People who embodied will to power weren't necessarily aggressive or domineering. They were individuals who had maintained connection to their own authentic energy, who pursued meaningful goals despite obstacles, and who refused to diminish themselves to gain social approval or avoid conflict. Have you ever noticed that you're naturally drawn to people who seem to have a clear sense of direction and aren't afraid to pursue their goals, even when others disapprove? The psychological attraction to will to power operates on multiple levels that Nietzsche understood intuitively, but that modern psychology is only beginning to articulate scientifically. At the most basic level, individuals who embody will to power signal genetic and psychological fitness through their refusal to be diminished by adversity, their capacity for independent decision-making, and their ability to create value and meaning in their own lives. These qualities suggest to potential partners that such individuals would be capable of providing both emotional support and practical assistance during difficult times. But the attraction goes deeper than practical considerations into what Nietzsche called life-affirming versus life-denying orientations toward existence. People who embody will to power approach life with energy, curiosity, and creative engagement that others find psychologically compelling because it awakens their own potential for growth and excitement. Being around such individuals creates a sense of possibility and expansion that contrasts sharply with the psychological constriction that comes from spending time with people who have accepted limitation and mediocrity as permanent conditions. Nietzsche understood that this attraction wasn't gender-specific, but reflected universal human psychology about what constitutes psychological health and vitality. However, he observed that modern society had created particular confusion around masculine expression of will to power, teaching men to suppress their natural drive toward excellence and self-mastery in favor of seeking approval and avoiding conflict. This created what he saw as a crisis of authentic masculinity that left many men psychologically diminished and therefore less attractive to potential partners. The philosopher's insights about will to power challenged both traditional and progressive ideas about what makes individuals attractive and compelling. Traditional morality suggested that self-sacrifice and conformity to established roles created virtue and attractiveness. Progressive ideology often promoted the idea that ambition and individual excellence were selfish or harmful. Nietzsche argued that both perspectives misunderstood fundamental human psychology and the relationship between individual development and healthy relationships. According to Nietzsche's analysis, people who had developed authentic will to power were attractive because they offered the possibility of genuine partnership rather than dependency or dominance. They had developed sufficient self-mastery and creative energy to contribute meaningfully to relationships without requiring constant validation or emotional management from their partners. This psychological independence paradoxically made them more capable of genuine intimacy and mutual support. Can you think of relationships in your life where you felt most attracted to someone's confidence and independence rather than their neediness or willingness to conform to your expectations. The concept of will to power also explained why traditional nice guy behavior often failed to create attraction, despite conventional wisdom suggesting that kindness and accommodation should be universally appealing. Nietzsche observed that individuals who consistently suppressed their own desires and goals to please others were unconsciously communicating psychological weakness and lack of authentic self-direction. This wasn't about being cruel or selfish, but about maintaining connection to one's own values and creative energy, while still being capable of genuine care for others. Nietzsche's understanding of will to power revealed why many people found themselves attracted to individuals who seemed slightly dangerous or unpredictable, not because they enjoyed being mistreated, but because such individuals had maintained access to authentic personal power and creative energy that others found psychologically compelling. The attraction wasn't to cruelty or inconsistency, but to the vitality and independence that often accompanied such individuals. The philosopher's analysis also explained why success and achievement, while sometimes attractive, weren't sufficient to create deep attraction if they came from conformity to external expectations rather than authentic personal drive. Individuals who achieved conventional success while suppressing their own creative energy and authentic desires often remained psychologically unattractive despite their external accomplishments. True will to power required alignment between external achievement and internal authentic self-expression. This insight revealed why many people struggled with attraction patterns that seemed to contradict their conscious values and rational self-interest. They found themselves drawn to individuals whose will to power was expressed in ways that challenged social conventions or created practical complications, while feeling little attraction to individuals who had achieved conventional success through conformity and people-pleasing. Nietzsche's analysis suggested that these patterns reflected unconscious recognition of psychological vitality versus psychological diminishment. The concept of will to power also illuminated why personal growth and self-development often increased an individual's attractiveness beyond simple improvements in appearance or social status. When people engaged in authentic development of their capabilities, creative expression, and personal mastery, they were cultivating the very qualities that Nietzsche identified as fundamentally attractive to human psychology. This development signaled psychological health, creative potential, and the capacity for continued growth that others found compelling. Have you experienced periods in your life when you were actively growing and pursuing meaningful challenges and noticed that others seemed more drawn to your energy and presence? Nietzsche's philosophy suggested that developing authentic will to power required distinguishing between healthy self-assertion and unhealthy dominance or aggression. True will to power was directed primarily towards self-mastery and creative expression rather than control over others. Individuals who tried to compensate for internal weakness through external dominance were expressing what Nietzsche called reactive rather than active forces. They were responding to feelings of inadequacy rather than expressing authentic strength. This distinction explained why genuinely confident individuals often appeared more relaxed and less aggressive than those who were trying to compensate for insecurity. People with authentic will to power didn't need to prove their worth through dominance or competition because they had developed internal sources of validation through personal mastery and creative achievement. This inner confidence was psychologically attractive because it suggested emotional stability and independence. The philosopher's insights about will to power also revealed why many modern approaches to self-improvement failed to increase attractiveness despite focusing on conventional markers of success. Programs that emphasized external achievement without addressing internal psychological development often produced individuals who appeared successful but lacked the authentic personal power that created genuine attraction. True development of will to power required integration of external capability with internal self-mastery and creative expression. Nietzsche understood that will to power wasn't about achieving a particular lifestyle or level of success, but about maintaining connection to one's authentic creative energy and refusing to be psychologically diminished by external circumstances. This could be expressed through artistic creation, entrepreneurial ventures, athletic achievement, intellectual development, or any other pursuit that required genuine effort and creative engagement. The specific domain mattered less than the authenticity and energy with which it was pursued. Subscribe to this channel if you're interested in exploring how philosophical insights can provide practical guidance for personal development and understanding human psychology. Like this video if you believe that authentic personal growth and self-mastery are more attractive than trying to please others or conform to external expectations. Share this content with someone who's ready to develop their own will to power in healthy and life-affirming ways. The practical application of Nietzsche's insights about will to power required honest self-assessment about the difference between authentic personal development and performance designed to gain approval or avoid rejection. Many people had learned to suppress their genuine interests, creative impulses, and personal goals in favor of pursuing what they thought others wanted from them. This psychological self-betrayal inevitably diminished their attractiveness by disconnecting them from their own vital energy and authentic self-expression. Developing authentic will to power often required the courage to disappoint others who had become accustomed to accommodation and people-pleasing behavior. This wasn't about becoming selfish or cruel, but about reconnecting with personal values, creative interests, and meaningful goals that had been suppressed in favor of external validation. The temporary discomfort of setting boundaries and pursuing authentic goals was typically outweighed by the increased energy and attractiveness that came from living in alignment with one's genuine nature. Nietzsche's philosophy also suggested that will to power was naturally attractive because it represented the possibility of growth and adventure that many people craved but felt unable to pursue independently. Being around individuals who embodied authentic personal power created opportunities for others to experience excitement, challenge, and expansion that contrasted with the psychological stagnation that often characterized conformist lifestyles. The concept of will to power revealed why many people found themselves most attracted to individuals during periods when those individuals were actively pursuing challenging goals or engaging in creative projects. The energy and focus required for such pursuits naturally enhanced attractiveness by demonstrating the psychological vitality and self-direction that others found compelling. This explained why people often seemed most attractive when they were least available or focused on others. They were channeling their energy into authentic self-expression rather than seeking external validation. Nietzsche's insights about will to power also illuminated the relationship between individual development and healthy relationships. People who had developed authentic personal power were more capable of genuine partnership because they brought creative energy and psychological independence to relationships rather than neediness or dependency. This created the foundation for mutual growth and support rather than the psychological diminishment that often characterized relationships between individuals who had lost connection to their own vital energy. The philosopher understood that will to power wasn't a destination, but an ongoing process of growth, creative expression, and self-mastery that required continuous effort and courage. Individuals who embodied this quality weren't perfect or without struggles, but they had maintained commitment to their own development and refused to accept psychological diminishment as a permanent condition. This commitment to growth was inherently attractive because it promised continued evolution and expansion rather than stagnation. Your own attractiveness and personal magnetism may be directly related to how successfully you've maintained connection to your authentic creative energy and personal goals, despite social pressures to conform or avoid challenge. Nietzsche's philosophy suggests that developing genuine will to power through pursuing meaningful challenges, expressing your authentic creativity, and refusing to be psychologically diminished by external circumstances may be one of the most effective ways to become genuinely attractive to others while also creating a fulfilling and meaningful life. The ultimate insight from Nietzsche's understanding of will to power is that authentic attractiveness comes not from trying to please others or avoiding conflict, but from developing genuine personal strength, creative expression, and psychological independence that naturally draws others who are seeking growth, excitement, and authentic connection in their own lives.